Hi, my name is Spencer Dutson. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified emotionally focused therapist and supervisor, and certified EMDR therapist. I'm really excited to be talking with you today about self-care. Before we dive into that, I need to give the following disclaimer. This is not therapy. It's a group of people who are coming together with a variety of problems and concerns. So information discussed and shared in this group is intended to support the therapeutic process and increase your readiness for change. If you're feeling suicidal or having life-threatening thoughts or other crises, this group is not a place to discuss those things. Please consider calling 988, getting in touch with your therapist as soon as possible, or reaching out to a loved one to access additional resources. Today, I want to talk about self-care. We've been kind of focusing on that recently, and I want to specifically focus on self-care versus self-maintenance. So oftentimes these two things get confused, that self-care is self-maintenance or vice versa. But I want to argue that understanding the difference between what is self-maintenance for you versus what's self-care is really important to making sure that your self-care is meaningful and impactful. So basically, to provide some definitions of how I view these things, self-maintenance are those things that you do day to day just to like be functioning, like showering or taking a bath, cooking food for yourself, cleaning your house, walking your dog. I don't know, things like that, right? They're just things that have to get done or need to get done to have, again, like a functioning kind of normal life. Self-care, on the other hand, is quite different. So to be specific, I usually define self-care as something that brings you joy and or peace. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about what those things mean here in a second, but let me go back to self-maintenance, Ken. A lot of times when I'm working with people in the therapy room, they'll talk about things that are self-maintenance as if they were self-care. Now, sometimes there can be crossover. For example, taking a shower, self-maintenance, right? But what if instead of taking a shower, you decide to like take a really long bath, or maybe you do a bath bomb, or you soak in some magnesium, or do something else that's like really calming, and you spend extra time doing it or make it extra special. That's kind of a two for one, if you will, killing two birds with one stone. You're maybe getting that self-maintenance aspect, but also you're getting that self-care of doing something that hopefully brings you joy and or peace. So they can cross over, but it's important to recognize something as maybe purely self-maintenance versus self-care, because if you're only ever doing self-maintenance kind of things, you're going to lack that joy and peace that comes from doing self-care consistently and doing it well. So again, self-maintenance are day-to-day stuff, showering, eating, cleaning your house, walking your dog, chores, that kind of stuff, right? Look at self-maintenance things like things that need to get done in a way before self-care becomes really meaningful. Not to say that you can't do self-care before self-maintenance. For example, there's probably going to be lots of nights where you could choose to do the dishes or read that book you've been really looking to get into. That book reading is probably going to be some self-care and you're sacrificing a self-maintenance thing, but it's okay, right? Now, if you compare that to a situation where maybe you have no more clean dishes and nothing to eat on, that's probably a moment where if you're doing a self-care thing instead of the self-maintenance, that's problematic. Your self-care thing is not going to be as joyful or as peaceful because you've got those pile of dishes hanging over you in the background, right? So that's the thing that I want to emphasize is that we have to take care of our self-maintenance things first. If you've ever heard of this before, there's a therapist from a long, long time ago who talked about this thing that is now called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And basically what he talks about is we have to meet our basic needs first. It's like a triangle, right? Like almost like the food pyramid-esque, right? We start at the bottom, meeting our basic needs, things like safety, shelter, etc. And then as we meet those needs, we can go up to higher needs and continue to meet these higher needs until we get to the top of the triangle or the hierarchy of needs, which is existential. It's self-actualization, which just is a fancy way of saying you're living your fullest self, right? So self-care versus self-maintenance, similar. Usually it's best to focus on self-maintenance things first and then go to self-care. Now we can find a balance here, but again, as you're maybe focusing on self-care in your life during this, maybe today or this week, maybe review, are there things in my self-maintenance part of my life that I'm not doing that I probably should be doing that would help to make my self-care more meaningful? Again, we usually have to get that stuff taken care of first before moving on to the next thing. And to talk about self-care a little bit, like I said, self-care is something that's going to bring you joy or peace. Now, I really want to be particular and specific about why I'm using those words, joy and peace. I am not saying happy and like rested per se, because what you do may not actually give you those things. For example, I'm a mountain biker. Mountain biking for me is self-care. However, usually when I get back from a ride, I don't feel rested. In fact, I feel exhausted, right? But I feel peaceful. I feel peaceful on the mountain. I feel peaceful coming back usually. And there's a lot of joy connected to it, right? Joy in the act of doing it, joy in the stories that I have when I come home, joy in the thought of when's my next ride going to be, right? It's not just a happiness thing, it's a joy thing, right? And happiness versus joy, I mean, I might be splitting hairs with this, but happiness to me is a more fleeting, superficial kind of feeling. Whereas joy is a more meaningful, deep, rich kind of feeling, right? Kind of like if you've ever had like some cheap milk chocolate from the store and then had like a gourmet, like dark chocolate kind of experience, right? There's just a difference there, happiness versus joy. And so when we identify our self-care things, we need to make sure, does this hit at least one of those boxes? Does it help me to feel joy or does it help me to feel peaceful? And if you can find something that gives you both of those things fairly consistently, that's your golden ticket. That's the thing that you need to focus on when it comes to your self-care. So I want to challenge you to try to do something. And you can do this right now. Kind of just pause this video, or if you're listening to it, pause it. And give yourself a moment to get a piece of paper or your phone or a tablet or something to write a list down, okay? And on that list, I want you to write out every single thing that you think you do that is just connected, that's connected to self-care in some way, okay? So again, pause the video right now, and I want you to think, what are the things I do for self-care? Okay, hopefully you just resume the video and we can talk from here. After having gone through that list, the next thing I want you to do is go through that list and identify, are there any things on this list that are actually self-maintenance? Just day-to-day stuff that I have to do anyways. So take a minute to do that and then come back. Okay, assuming you've resumed the video now again, and you identified those self-maintenance things, now I want you to go through and under each thing, I want you to identify joy and or peace. Do I get joy from this thing or do I feel peaceful doing this thing or both? Okay, take a moment to do that and then again, come back to the video after you've done that. Okay, coming back, you should now have a list where you've identified things that are maybe actually self-maintenance and not really self-care for you, and which of these things bring you joy and or peace. Now, whatever on your list you might have that fits both of those boxes, joy and peace, I want to challenge you to focus on that today or tomorrow. Don't wait till the weekend. Focus on doing that thing and just noticing what that maybe does for you, okay? I'm a big believer in planning things out and scheduling things out. So if you don't have it on your calendar, it probably won't happen, right? So take some time to do that. If you're looking at your list and you're like, shoot, Spencer, there's nothing on this list that brings me joy or brings me peace. I want you to spend some time sometime today or tomorrow thinking about, well, what could bring me joy or bring me peace? And here's some questions to maybe consider as you do that. Is there anything that you've done before in the past that gave you a spark of something, an excitement, a passion that maybe you don't do anymore? Could you try picking that thing up again? Maybe it's the playing the recorder from like elementary school, right? Or it could be anything. But try to think if there's anything that maybe did that for you in the past and you could try picking up again now. Another question to ask yourself is, have I just created a life that's too busy, too hectic? And if you have, maybe the simple reality is that you haven't created time for self-care. And so what you need to do instead is think about, how can I scale back? How can I do less? And then oftentimes when we do that, you can create a space where very naturally you're going to be able to fill it with self-care things, right? Simply put, nothing's going to be able to be self-care for you if you don't have or allow time for it. So I hope this discussion has been valuable for you in identifying the differences between self-maintenance and self-care, but also to give you a little bit more direction when it comes to, how do I find something that truly is self-care and in a way that makes sense for me. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out to our office. We'd love to help you with any therapy related concerns that you might have. We love helping people and we wish the best for you. Until next time, thank you.